Now we're going to have a very interesting conversation with John Barry, who is a writer for Newsweek, and he has written a piece called The Politics of Vengeance. Obama should avoid the blame game on Bush's security failings. John, welcome to the Young Turks. So let me ask you, let me ask you to lay out the case first. Why do you think Obama should not investigate possible illegal activities by the Bush administration when it comes to warrantless wiretapping or the issue of torture?
I don't say that he shouldn't investigate. I think, you'll see in the piece, that what I actually suggest is a committee of people composed half of administration nominees and half of congressional nominees who would in fact sit, take evidence in private under subpoena, and then issue a report on A, what happened, and B, how to avoid those things happening again. So I'm not against an inquiry. What I think is counterproductive would be a special prosecutor, a criminal investigation, congressional committees of inquiry, all those things. And the reason I think that is as following. First, we actually do know what happened. Okay, we know in a lot of detail about virtually every aspect of the controversial policies of the Bush administration. Point one. So there is not much more of substance to be found, in my judgment. Mm-hmm. Secondly, we know who ordered it. I mean, it was ordered by the president. There is this effort to paint Vice President Cheney as the dark influence, but that, of course, is nonsense. It's just avoiding blaming the president. The truth is that the Vice President has absolutely no authority other than what is delegated to him by the president. So the president's responsible. And if there were criminal actions, then we know, because the Constitution lays it down, what the remedy is, which is to impeach the president. But we're not going to do that, of course, and Congress isn't going to do that, and Congress didn't have the nerve to do that at the time while President Bush was in office. So the third reason is that it is not clear that anybody in the executive branch believed the laws were being broken. Indeed, it is reasonably clear that most people in the executive branch were persuaded that laws were not being broken, the reason being that the Office of Legal Counsel in the Department of Justice held in a series of memoranda opinions that what the president wanted to do was legal. And we know that, for instance, that people in the CIA were explicitly assured, because they asked this, that what they were proposing, what they were being asked to do was legal. So it's not at all clear that under the rulings given to the executive branch at the time that anybody knew they were doing something illegal. Okay?
All right. We're talking to John Barry of Newsweek. Now that you've laid out the case, John...
Well, I read that part of the case, but you interrupted me before I came to the end of it.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
The final part of the case is that there's... the political argument against doing it is that at the moment when you have a new administration that very much wants bipartisanship to cope with a catastrophic economic meltdown, there is nothing more calculated to bring about what I call a savagely polarized Congress, and indeed a savagely polarized polity throughout the country, I think, than to embark upon retrospective criminal investigations. It's just a stupid idea politically.
Let me ask you something, John. Putting aside the politics for a second, isn't every criminal investigation retroactive? So if Bernie Madoff were to come to us and say, hey, look, what are you bothering me with these retroactive criminal investigations for? You already know what happened. I stole the money. So why are you bothering me with this? Would that be an adequate defense?
Well, first of all, of course, it's not true that all criminal prosecutions are retroactive. Conspiracies to commit conspiracies to commit relate to future acts. But on the issue that all prosecutions or investigations are retroactive, that is, of course, true, but there is a difference between retroactivity as applied to a normal citizen and retroactivity as applied to a whole administration. You have to admit that you're talking of a different scale of event here.
Well, let's address that point then. I think that it is more troublesome if our president does something illegal, not less troublesome, because he represents the power of the government.
I would agree with you.
Okay, so and you say one of the consequences is impeachment. I agree with you, and you say Congress didn't have the nerve to do that. I agree with you.
Right.
But another one of the consequences, it is a crime. There's punishable by a certain amount of time in jail if convicted and or fines. So why would we not enforce those laws when it comes to the president?
You say it is a crime. I mean, what is a crime?
First of all, doing warrantless wiretapping without a court order, literally without a warrant, is a crime.
Well, it turns out if you read the latest FISA judgments and so on, that turns out to be complicated. Look, you can perfectly well make a case to say, gee, we should investigate everything, and you can make that case, which you clearly want to do. Of course you can. My argument is that the chances of a criminal prosecution getting at the person who was responsible for these decisions, that is, the president of the day, the chances are zero because Congress decided not to do the thing which the Constitution allows, which is to impeach the man. So what you're going to do is to go after a group of underlings who were assured that what they were doing was legal.
No, but that's where I lose you, John, and I wanted to talk to you about that because I don't understand that point. There is another avenue of going after George Bush, who was the president at the time. I don't need to go after the underlings. I need to go after the person who gave the orders. And it is a violation of federal statute, not just the warrantless wiretapping, but clearly also the torture. So
No. Be clear about this. What we know is that the Office of Legal Counsel came up with an opinion, with which you may disagree, and lots of people may disagree, which said that what was being done was in fact legal. So, you may not like that, but the Office of Legal Counsel is the managing legal authority for the executive branch. So everybody involved in this can claim legal cover, it seems to me.
If the Office of Legal Counsel told the president that he could, A, kill someone in broad daylight with no justification, or B, just go up to someone and mug him, would the president have the authority to do that?
I have no idea.
You have no idea?
No, I have no idea.
Okay, so it is an interesting question as to what the Office of Legal Counsel can authorize, since they're also part of the executive branch. That is an interesting question, is it not?
Not terribly, I should have thought, but anyway, carry on. Yeah, I mean, you're clearly building. I mean, look, you're building up to make a case. The case is we should investigate the hell out of everything. That's fine. What I'm saying is that first of all, the political consequences should certainly be weighed before President Obama goes ahead. That seems to me to be actually quite important. And secondly, that the chances at this point of being able to get a successful criminal prosecution of President Bush are close to zero. And so what is going to come...
that is your legal opinion, John, I suppose.
No, I mean, it's reasonably... When you talk to most people who are involved in this thing, you will find that that's reasonably clear.
I don't find that, to be honest.
Fine. So you don't find it, okay?
Okay. So, look, John, and we're talking to John Barry, and he's written an interesting piece called The Politics of Vengeance in Newsweek. And it's not... Here's my issue with this. It isn't about politics. The reason I put politics aside in the first place is because I think it is an interesting point as to whether Democrats will gain or lose from this investigation. And if you posit that they will lose from it, I don't necessarily disagree with you. I don't know how that would play out.
I'm not sure.
Okay.
I'm not positing that the Democrats will lose. I'm positing that the country will lose, because what you're going to get is a paralyzed and daggers drawn Congress. That seems to be a bad thing for the country at large. I'm not particularly concerned with who wins and who gains out of this in part in political terms. I am concerned with what happens to the ability to govern the country in this economic crisis, and so should you be, by the way.
Yes, I'm very concerned about that. But what I'm also concerned about, John...
Fine, so weigh the actions that you're advising against the likely consequences.
No, but you are under the impression that if we do a criminal investigation of laws that were broken, that the government will be paralyzed. I don't agree with that assumption.
Congress will certainly be paralyzed.
Okay, I mean, that is, again, your assumption, but I don't agree with that assumption. Now,
John,
let me ask you something.
I give you a case in point, which is the Supreme Court's supremely silly notion that, of course, the cases against President Bill Clinton could go ahead because there was no evidence that it would paralyze his ability to perform the duties of the president. Boy, was that ever wrong. I mean,
the issue there is
the result of that was to kiss goodbye to Clinton's second term.
John,
if you want to kiss goodbye to Obama's first term, fine, but I think it's a bad idea.
No, but you're conflating two different issues there. The Congress got frozen there, one, because they wanted to get frozen. They didn't want to get anything done that was part of Clinton's initiative. They wanted to spend all the time on impeachment hearings. And impeachment is a wholly different issue than a special prosecutor and an investigation. One doesn't have to lead to the other, and in this case, impeachment is already out the window. That isn't an issue. The issue is an independent prosecutor taking this through the court system. And so what I'm mostly concerned about, though, is if we do nothing at all.
Why do you think an independent prosecutor would be able to actually find out anything? I tell you what would happen, which is everybody brought before him. Because the issue would be, were laws broken, was criminal activity either ordered, condoned in, or acquiesced in. What's going to happen is everybody involved is going to take the fifth. It's not going to get anywhere. Mm-hmm. The practicalities are that a special prosecutor is not going to be able to get anywhere.
But, John, couldn't we then say we shouldn't investigate anything because everybody's going to take the fifth and we'll never get anywhere? It doesn't seem to me that there is a more compelling case here for that than any other case.
I think it's a really bad. I think it's an indication, if I may say so, the weakness of your argument that you were forced to posit, absurd extremes.
But it seems to me you're positing that.
Particular case. No, I'm not. I'm sure there are lots of cases where criminal prosecutors, special prosecutors, are a very good idea. I'm merely saying in this case it's not. Now you're saying, gee, does that mean we should never have special prosecutors? No, I'm not saying that.
No, but your argument is based on everybody's going to take the fifth. Couldn't you make that case for every single prosecution?
No, you can't actually. But we're rather straying off topic. You can't make that case for every single criminal prosecution because you can usually involve.
Why is this case different?
Why is this case different? Because it is so scattershot in the number of people it's going to scoop up that everybody is going to run for cover. You know that perfectly well.
Right. That's why they wouldn't take the fifth.
Everybody from the lowest CIA official up to including the Secretary of Defense, the Secretary of State, the National Security Advisor, and the President.
But John, as with every prosecution, since they are worried about that, they will turn evidence against the people that actually ordered them to do it. That's how prosecutions work. I don't see this as any different. But mainly, I want to focus before we run out of time, on one last thing. Sure. I'm more worried about what happens if we don't do anything. The precedent that we set, that the executive branch can commit crimes, and then if they make it out of office without being impeached, hey, well, then they got away with it. Doesn't this lead any reasonable president to say, all I got to do is make it out of office, and people will say, hey, it's going to be a political nightmare, it's going to bog down the courts or the Congress, and so I'm going to get away with it scot-free?
Mm-hmm. What's your question?
I said, isn't it a bad precedent? Aren't you worried that would...
If you believe that would be the consequence, it would be a bad precedent. I think your hypothesis is nonsensical, so I don't think it is a bad precedent.
Okay, why is it nonsensical?
What I think the precedent is, the lesson that should be learned from this is that if Congress had done its job, which it chose not to do, if the judiciary had done its job, which it chose not to do, if the American public had done their job and voted a president who, by your lights, was guilty of illegal actions out of office, which they, by the way, chose not to do in 2004, then none of this would have happened. As it is, it happened. Okay, let us learn the lessons. Let us now not go back to try to prevent them happening again. Let us now not go back and say, oh, gee, we're really sorry we condoned all these illegalities, and let's prosecute some of the underlings responsible.
No, but you keep going back to the underlings. I never said to prosecute the underlings. I said to prosecute the people at the top, Rumsfeld, Gonzalez, and George W. Bush, the ones that authorize this. And if you don't prosecute them, then I don't see how your answer would lead to any other executive branch official thinking, yeah, if I make it out of office without people, impeaching me, that, yeah, I can commit any damn crime I like. Isn't that a problem, John? I'm asking you earnestly.
I've already answered that. Were that to be the consequence, then yes, I suppose it would be a problem.
Well, why don't you think that would be the consequence, then?
Because I think you're living in a world of unreality.
I don't think I'm living in that world. I'm asking you people to follow the laws, and you're telling me that if we give immunity to people, basically, by saying we're not going to ever prosecute them, that they will just voluntarily follow the laws. I don't believe that's how our government is set up.
No, it isn't. No, it isn't, indeed. The government is set up as a government of checks and balances, where if Congress had done its job, and if any Congress person had bothered or had the nerve to actually act upon the knowledge that they had of, for instance, the interrogation methods, then none of this would have happened.
John, you want them to do their job, so why don't you let the prosecutors do their job?
I think it was Congress didn't act. Okay, it's the fault of Congress.
Okay, I know they didn't act. I don't disagree with that. I'm saying, why don't you let the new Justice Department do their job?
So what are you going to do?
I'm going to prosecute them for breaking the law.
So what you have is a situation where senior members of Congress of both parties were briefed on interrogation methods, which everyone is now saying were torture. Okay? Congress those individuals chose to do nothing about that. So what are they going to do? They're co-conspirators, arguably. Are you going to prosecute them as well?
Well, if that is what the special prosecutor finds, my answer is hell yes. Hell yes.
It's not a case of special prosecutor. We know, it's a matter of public record, that senior members of Congress, the relative leaderships on both sides in Congress, were briefed on interrogation methods and chose to do nothing about it.
If the special prosecutor finds legal culpability in that, and that is an open question, then I would say absolutely prosecute them. Okay, because the laws were broken, and these are not minor laws. These are gigantic laws. And I don't, again...
What do you assert that? But that's an opinion which has to be sorted out.
All right, well, it will have to be sorted out. Obviously, we have not come to an agreement on this. But I believe a special prosecutor should look at the laws that are broken so that a president doesn't have carte blanche to break any laws in the future. And honestly, I'm a little surprised that you're not more concerned about that.
Of course I'm concerned about it. I think it's a frankly bad idea. What I'm saying is that the remedy you're proposing is an even worse idea.
All right, fair enough. We'll have to leave it right there. John Barry of Newsweek. You can check out his piece at Newsweek.com. We have also got a link up to it at theyoungturks.com. Thank you for joining us and having the conversation.
Yeah, I enjoyed it.